podcast. My name is Nancy Taya Aragbai, and I am your host. Today, I'm super excited because we have with us an amazing guest with an amazing story by the name of Saruul Johnson. Saruul, can you just go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience? Let them know who you are, what you do, and we'll get started in your story.
Okay. Hi, everyone. How is it going? Hope you are having a fantastic day with great energy and vibration and, all blessings from God. And so, anyway, my name is Saruul Johnson. I am originally from Mongolia. I came to the US when I was 18 years old to study. So I had a 100% scholarship, and that was the only chance for me to study abroad. It was such a surreal feeling to stand on the land with two bags, and I have no understanding of the language and what was going on. I felt like for a year it was numb. I couldn't understand anything what was going on. And from there on, I just really believed that God had a purpose for me, bringing me from all the way half of the world to bring it to the US. And so ever since I took that fate, um, it's just been fantastic. But obviously, throughout my journey until now, I had so many different challenges, obviously. But we were gonna talk more about that. But today, I am a mother of two beautiful daughters, Hadassah and Hannah, and they are 9 and 8 years old. And so I reside in Suwanee, Georgia, currently, and I'm a financial professional. And so when it comes to finance, my company Vision Guard helps business owners to structure their finance and accounting system, and so help them to process bookkeeping, accounting, payroll, tax filing, and all the forecasting and budgeting and so on and so forth. For when it comes to individual, I am so passionate about personal finance as well. And so when I actually sit down with clients and do analysis and help them to understand what's going on within their finance and to get really confident in their personal finance as well as business finance.
That is awesome.
So overall, that's who I am today, right? So yeah, go ahead and ask me questions and I'll answer. But definitely throughout those journey, God has brought me to where I am today. It's just such a living testament of God, my
Sure,
life.
for
Mhm.
sure. As you were speaking, I was like, wow, yeah, you truly are a warrior woman. I just thought about you just migrating here from Mongolia and really just like starting a fresh life, not knowing anyone, not really speaking the language. Like that within itself is a whole challenge that I'm like picturing in my mind. Like how brave of you were you to do something like that at a young age and navigate this space and be the woman you are today. Can you just talk a little bit about that journey as you migrated here to the United States, and what obstacles did you face while you were here and how you were able to navigate that?
That is a good question. So I have to, when it comes to United States coming to study, I have to bring out my dad because I have to mention him. I grew up without a mom. My mom passed away when I was 6 years old, and my dad, he raised us, me, my sister, and that man poured everything to us. He tried to carry it on his shoulders so we didn't have to feel like less than, and so one thing that he believed in is education, and so he always wanted to study abroad himself, and he didn't get a chance to do so, and so he opened up that door for me. Although I had 100% scholarship, without him, it wouldn't be possible for me to be here today. And so I'm just so thankful and grateful for my father and God opening the door for me because around that time, it was just a really tough, teenage years for me with stepmom and, always having that challenges of mentally challenged and physical, not so much physically, but emotionally a lot manipulation and things like that I went through with my stepmom. And I just asked God, is it? Can I just escape from here? Can I go somewhere? And I felt like he heard my voice and he opened that door for me to study abroad. Now, when I first stepped on the ground, I really didn't know what I was doing, and I had to figure it out. Um, Although I didn't believe in God at that time, I just knew that if I put in the work and effort, I was atheist when I first landed.
Mm,
So I didn't believe in any higher power or anything. It's just my personal work ethic, and doing the right thing is gonna help me in this life. But I actually faced a really huge car accident when I was in sophomore year
wow.
in college when I was 20 years old.
Mm,
And so it was a T-bone car accident. I was a driver, and car SUV just came in and hit me just like that. And so
wow.
car was smushed in a half, and I was like squeezed in between my, middle compartment and the door. And the scariest thing I've ever experienced is that I had three passengers with me and my friends in college, right? And so I I lost consciousness, and I heard like rocks falling, and I opened my eyes, and I just like, what just happened? And then my friend who was sitting in the passenger side, she looked at me, she started screaming and crying, and I just felt something cold dripping, and then I kind of did this, and blood was like all over my face.
Wow.
And but I didn't feel much pain or anything except such immense amount of fear. And I turned around, and I was just so scared because both of my friends in the back seat were covered in blood, and they
Ooh,
were both, one of them was unconscious, the other one was answering. And so for me to get to that point where life in an instant can be taken away,
mm,
and for me to get to the point where I was absolutely out of control because I thought I could control everything around me, you know what I mean? And so in that moment I just felt so vulnerable. I just didn't know what to do. I had such fear. I had this huge opportunity to study in the US, and I'm just like, bunch of thoughts coming in, is blown away, or what's going to happen next, and all of these things. And I'm just so grateful until this day. My spiritual mom, Jill Mitchell, she walks into it just gets me emotional, but she walks into the hospital and she's like, "Can I pray for you?" So I'm like, "Oh, whatever, whatever. I don't know how to pray." So she's like, "I don't know how to pray," I said, and she's like, "It's okay. Close your eyes and I'll pray for you." And two things I kind of tested God in that moment, although I'm not the person to test him. But I was like, "Okay, if you're really existing, but then show me yourself." And I just asked him to show himself to me. And I asked two things or three things. Number one, I want to walk again because my lower body didn't feel anything at that point. I was
ooh,
going to CT scan, and so sometimes people lose that movement after that kind of accident where my hip bone was squished in
ooh,
there. It was being caught. So I prayed, can I walk again? Can you help me to walk again? And then second prayer that I did was that um, I cannot pay all of these expenses because it was just so scary to me. I was an international student, not much money, you know what I mean, at that time. Barely paying my dad was barely paying this room and board, and I was like, all of this medical expense is gonna kill me. Can you please take care of this? I didn't know how he was gonna take care of it. But anyway, the third prayer that I did was my friend who was unconscious. She was bleeding internally.
mm,
And so I just prayed at that point, but I didn't know how serious was the situation. I just prayed that, can my friends be alive, please? And so those three prayers I prayed, and I was like, show yourself. But anyway, he showed himself every step of the way, so powerful. And from that moment, you know, gone through the CT scan, doctor came into the door. He's like, your hip and backbones are fractured, but you're
ooh,
gonna walk again. So
wow,
I was on wheelchair about 6 months, then crutches about 3 months, and then after 9 months, I was actually walking again. So he
wow,
answered the first prayer, and then second prayer I said, the medical bill, and the friends that were traveling with me, they got liability coverage from the insurance company, and they decided to cover my medical bill with that money. And I was like, oh my God, it was $10,000, $20,000. I don't know what it was, but it was covered. And then the third prayer I prayed was, can my friends be alive? So the one that was sitting next to me, she was pretty okay. The one that's behind me, she broke her leg and she was okay, conscious, everything is okay. But the one that was sitting on the other passenger side of the back, she was internally bleeding.
Mm.
And she actually lost about 60% of her left side, right side hearing loss. She had a hearing loss,
Wow.
and but she's alive, so everybody was alive, you know. And so from that moment I just increased in faith. I knew that there are powerful things outside of myself, and there are things that I cannot control, and it's okay.
Mm.
And i
Mm.
just gotta i just gotta trust him in that moment.
Yeah.
And yeah, anyway, so that's just a big awakening, aha, you know what I mean, in my life. And and then I'm progressing through. One thing that I've learned in that instant is that I alone cannot do much,
Yeah.
right? But I had people surrounding me, people who were going to cafeteria and bringing me food, people who were helping me to get on my wheelchair, people who helping me to shower. You know what I mean? I couldn't shower myself. And so from that moment, God showed me what I really learned from that is that we are surrounded by people, and
Mm.
that's beautiful. We help each other, you know, a progress in life. And from that moment my love for people just increased, and respect for people and their own journeys in life and their growth in life. It's just from that moment, it's just I just respected people, you know what I mean, for who they are.
Yeah.
And it really changed my perspective about others and about God and my belief in myself, you know.
Yeah. As you
Um,
were speaking, there were some lessons that were like pouring into my head. And you started off by mentioning like you thought that your own power, your own work ethic was enough.
yes.
And as you're sharing your story, it shifts because I'm like, man, we are limited. One, we don't control like anything else outside of just us as individuals. And clearly there's of course there's a higher power, but you learn that through the accident. But I think most important that I think people probably don't really lean into, community is important. And so you're going through these challenges. I can imagine how you felt emotionally, physically, just from being able to walk to not walk, right? Being free to now being in this chair, being able to shower to not being able to shower yourself. But through it, you had community who supported you, and took care of you. And so as I'm thinking about going through challenges, I think sometimes people tend to isolate, and
Mm,
maybe there's like some shame and just quite frankly, it's just challenging to where sometimes it may seem like being by yourself is better, but I don't know. You just made it the way you're speaking is like community and having people around you is essential when we're navigating challenges.
yes, absolutely. And instead of shutting ourselves and being staying stuck in our ego, you learn to be vulnerable, you know. And especially in my case, it's a situation that you have no other choice to be vulnerable. You cannot get up and walk yourself, so what can you do, right? And so he then showed me in a very specific way that my life was just not for myself alone, and to just live a life, maybe raise my kids, you know, and I have a happy my life and travel around the world with my kids, and that's it, and my life is done and die, you know. I just knew that I had some impact for others, and he brought me all the way from Mongolia to here for a reason, number one. And then he taught me very specific lesson when I was 20 years old, very early year in my, you know, adult life. He taught me that lesson that in this life you can be surrounded by people, and that's okay, and it's a beautiful thing, and they can be different from you, you know. They could think different than you, and it's okay. You support each other and move forward in that moment. And so I appreciated people from that moment on, and just being people person ever since then. You gotta have that mentality.
Yeah.
But more and more I understand it's like general law of the world that we live in. I always teach my daughters, it's like, okay, if you walk out today, go to maybe grocery store or go to school, what do you see? People. The people are everywhere.
Yeah.
If you work living in this world, then you got to learn how to work with people. And I try to teach them as early on. There's nothing to be scared from people. We are same humans, and we can connect and understand each other no matter what the backgrounds are. And just that in itself is a huge lesson that it
Yeah.
really helped me to accelerate in my career. And having compassion and having empathy and understanding that vulnerable moment, and everybody is going through stuff in life, especially women, career wise and children and marriage and failing marriage or whatever. I went through that myself, so I'm understanding there's some moments that you feel so down on the floor almost, but it's okay to lean on people when you cannot really pull yourself up,
Yeah.
and really like give them a hug. I'm like a hugger. So I just felt like I needed a hug in that moment, and so that physical touch and presence of others really helps you to get out of that moment. So
Yeah. So I thank you for sharing like just the foundation or the beginning of your journey. I want to shift and just like get into how did you get into this like financial space, this entrepreneurial space, and to now where you're helping individuals and businesses really, I guess we say, and from the financial side, how did you pivot into that space?
that this is fantastic question, because every time I get to answer, I'm like smiling, as you can see, because God has done miracles again in my life. And so what was happening is that one specific moment in my life, I cried out and I said, I it was right after college. I was a young mother. My daughter was like maybe a year or 2 years old, maybe a year, not even a year. And I found myself in a moment where I was struggling with finance. I didn't know what I was doing, and it just felt like suffocating. And I just cried out to him and said, I wish there was somebody who taught me how to do this right. And well, little did I know, he wanted me to, serve that myself.
Mhm.
So from that moment, I just asked that question, cried out. I really didn't know much. But anyway, my background is in business and finance, obviously, right? I'm a college student studying that and coming out of that feeling like that. Then what are the rest of the people who are
Mm.
not studying finance feeling like? You know what I mean?
Wow.
But anyway, so I started a career in accounting, full-time accountant, working for this private firm. And I just had this urge inside of me. I think 2014 to 2016, I was there for 2 years, and then 17, 3 years. But in 16, another big life-changing event happened in my life is that my father passed away. So I
Mm,
was in Mongolia, I was in here, and my father was in Mongolia. I received a phone call that he has passed away. So
mm,
that moment in my life was the lowest in my life. I
wow.
just didn't feel any connection to the world anymore.
Mm,
And I started to ask, okay, I know I am alive. I'm married. I have two daughters, you know, so then what is my life is about? And I started asking God, tell me, God. You said ask, seek, knock. I'm asking you, can you tell me why I am here? What's my purpose? And so in that moment, God just gave me a word vision, and I really didn't understand why he was giving me word vision. And I just went through Bible and trying to understand what instance, what verses is being used. And very big one stood out is that man without a vision perish. And
Mm,
so God was showing me in that moment is that he had a big vision for me, right? And so that my life has a purpose. And so that all clicked in. And when in the moment where eclipse happened in 2017, I believe, and in that moment I just saw a word, vision guard, and that stood out really significantly in my own self, and I just knew that this was the name. And so that's how my company was born in 2018. It's called Vision Guard. And
mhm.
so helping people to guard their vision and helping people to really bring the vision into reality is what our whole mission is. But obviously I am professional in finance and business, so I kind of like, implemented that into the Vision Guard, where we servicing business owners to really help them to bring their business to success. Makes sense? So, and so a very interesting thing happened in 2017 is that right in the moment was God was showing me, this is not the place you're supposed to be. I'm calling you to speak. He showed me an image that I was on the stage.
Wow.
Yes, and I'm calling to speak, he said. And then another thing is that this is the company, this is what you're gonna do, and this is your life purpose. And so I was like believing in it, and I've starting to feel this urgency to move, to get out of what was doing that to a full-time job, which is accountant at that moment. And the place that I was working at, one specific instance happened, and I was like, boop, that's it, time to get out. That specific instance was that brand new mom, and I mean, actually, a mom who has uh, maybe at that moment her son was 3 years old. So
Mhm.
she left the previous work and came to that company, and obviously 2 weeks notice, and she came already. And this specific company, without any warnings, without any like 2 weeks or anything, they just escorted out of the company, like they escorted her out of the company. And
Wow.
this girl cried to me. She's like, why are they treating me like this? Like there's some kind of humanity should be in us, like understanding, you know what I mean? You just brought a mother, single mother, to your company saying that you gonna pay her so she can support her child, and without any preparation for another 2 weeks, at least she can try to find another work somewhere. Without none of that, she gets escorted out like a criminal. And I just didn't want it to be part of that. And I just said, you know what? I'm walking out with
Wow.
faith in God. And God at that time opened opportunity for me to work as a consultant. And so that was like the beginning of everything. So I started working as a consultant, working from home. When coronavirus happened, God specifically was urging me to buy a house. And so I bought a house in 19, and coronavirus happened in 20. But
Mm.
my situation is I was working from home and consulting. My situation did not change at all. I didn't have to stress through that moments and thinking, will I be fired from my work or anything like that. A lot of people went through traumas during that
Yeah.
time. And I'm like, okay, God, I just know you got me. And I started to trust him more and more and more and more. And little by little, he started to really helping me to understand there's some things about finance that people really don't understand, and especially the relationship and the programming, and how they handle their money and everything behind. Here's the thing, before we look at the physical, there's invisible things happening, and that invisible things are the powerful things behind. There's a verse, there's a word, what do you call it, quote I always say: if you see the invisible, you can do the impossible. Just like that, there are certain things that people don't see that are powerful, like character, belief, faith, and courage,
Yeah.
and all of those things are so powerful. And that's invisible assets that we have, and not many people understand visible assets and the invisible assets, the difference of it, to
Yeah.
in relationships. And so And then I started to, all of this, by the way, I'm going through it myself. In my life, I'm learning through the process. God is showing me through my own process. Was I like, billionaire's daughter and inherited all of this money?
Mhm.
Well, that would be nice, right? But that's not my case, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
So, in my instance, where I'm an immigrant who started with two bags and nothing, to become a homeowner in the United States of America is many people's American dream.
yeah,
And, making more than, six figures, multiple six figures every year. And I'm like, well, if I can do it, girl with no English
mm,
came over. If I can become business owner and build ownership and build assets and equity and, really educate myself financially, if the everybody else can.
yeah.
Yeah.
I I truly, truly appreciate your story, and I'm hearing just some themes and almost like a blueprint for getting into a space, honestly, of purpose. Like what you're doing as a career, you were able to understand your life's challenges and use that in a very intentional way. And so when starting from first entering the United States and experiencing that traumatic car accident and discovering faith. Now, faith was really your pillar and your foundation, really into everything else. But then also understanding the power of community, and having people support you. That you really, us as individuals, are limited. And then from there, your father passing away, I can imagine it's not easy. I still have both of my parents, but I think about, man, the day that they won't be here, and it's like I can't even imagine it. It's tough, especially when he instilled so much in you. But then not getting stuck in that and figuring out, God, what's my purpose? There's more to life, right? And so each traumatic experience you went through with was like an intentional desire to understand the why
Mm.
behind that experience. And I think sometimes people get stuck in it versus trying to understand, this is happening to make me either grow in character, faith, a learning experience. Like life happens for you, not to you.
Yes.
And so you just had that understanding. And I think adopting that mindset, anyone who's going through or experiencing challenges, life will always throw you a challenge, but it's how do you embrace the challenge? And I think it starts with your mind. And that's what I've
Yes.
heard as you speaking this time. That's what I've heard, been hearing you say over the course of each challenge you experienced.
Yeah. And, really, mindset is the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you deciding, your decision is the thing, because I was a victim. I was such a victim mentality. I was complaining a lot. I didn't appreciate my job. I just didn't was not a happy person. And that's okay. I had to give myself a little pat in my back and said, you grew up with the trauma. You grew up without a mother. You felt abandoned when you were young, and it's okay. But now you no longer should do that. You have a power to change the situation and circumstance. And so when God really, here's the thing, God really showed me the thing that you need to work on is yourself. The
Mm-hmm.
rest of them, you give it to me. I'm going to handle all of it. You just focus on yourself and work on yourself to become a better human being. And so that's what I did. I was like, the mentality, the mindset has to be shifted right away, because I cannot win in life when I'm already a loser. You see what I mean? In my mind, you see, if I cannot do something with faith when I'm already doubted myself in the core. So
Yeah.
all of those had to be changed, where I started to doing like intentional shifting in my programming. First, I gotta do this awareness. I have to understand why I do what I do, why the things that's happening in my life keep on repeating happening and making me miserable or unhappy. Why is that? Then I'm like, okay, what is that connected with? My past, my relationships, my trauma, whatever it may be. Then